All right, welcome back, folks. Today we're going to be shooting some copper bullets in 6.5 Creedmoor. If you watched my recent video with the 6.5 Grendel, today's going to be a carbon copy of that test. Just the bullets are going to be a little bit heavier. The first bullet is the Barnes 120 grain TAC-TX. This bullet is not on the market anymore. Now, I'm almost certain that this bullet is the same as the 120 grain Barnes TTSX. I sent an email off to their customer support to see if they would confirm that. If I hear back from them before I'm done editing this video and ready to upload it, I'll put it here on the screen, let you know whether they confirmed or denied it. But it looks just like the TTSX, and it's got the blue tip. All of the other TAC-TX, I've shot the 110 grain TAC-TX and the 120 grain TAC-TX in 30 caliber in 300 blackout. Those have black tips. And I believe there's a 115 grain option in 6.5 millimeter. It's got a black tip. So these are different. They have the blue tip. I'm pretty sure they're TTSXs. We're just going to move forward assuming they're the same. The second bullet we're shooting is the Cavity Back Bullets MKZ 118 grains. So 2 grains lighter than the Barnes. Very different bullet design. Has a big cavity in the back. It's got a longer ogive, much shallower cantilevers. Big slits down the cantilever for expansion. So very different. These bullets don't have a whole lot in common other than the fact that they're both copper solids. Now, I have not had a whole lot of luck getting copper bullets to shoot really well. I've seen them shoot okay. I've seen them shoot pretty good. Those 110 and 120 grain TAC-TXs in 300 blackout that I mentioned earlier, those were pretty good shooters. I took deer and hogs with those bullets, and they did a good job. But the vast majority of my experience with copper bullets have been a little bit disappointing. And that continued into that 6.5 Grendel video that I just put out. Like our best group was a 1.64 inch group with the lighter cavity back. I think it was 105 grains. And the Barnes shot kind of terrible, like really bad. Now, in a recent live stream and in the comments section of that 6.5 Grendel video, a lot of people told me about a test that the YouTube channel Backfire had done where they tested copper bullet accuracy with a clean bore versus a dirty bore, or not necessarily dirty bore, a bore that had shot standard lead core bullets, copper jacketed lead bullets. And the accuracy with copper solids was much better when the bore had been cleaned, when all of the residual copper, when all of the copper fouling had been removed from the barrel. Now, I watched that video. Apparently he had heard it from Ron Spomer, and like I mentioned in the comments of that Grendel video, a bunch of you guys said that you had seen big accuracy improvements when shooting copper solids out of a clean bore, a decoppered bore, clean and decoppered. I feel like I explained that in the most roundabout, confusing way possible, but hopefully you get what I'm talking about. Today's bore is going to be clean. I've spent a couple days making sure that I had everything out of this bore and that it's as clean as I can get it. Now, we're going to be shooting my AR-10. 6.5 Creedmoor, ballistic advantage barrel. Before I cleaned it, I wanted to go out and make sure that it was zeroed because I don't have a ton of bullets, don't really have a bunch of extra bullets for sighters. So I wanted to make sure things were close. So these were the first 10 shots out of the gun on a cold bore. Pretty happy with that. This was the 123 grain Hornady match boat tail hollow point with Shooter's World long rifle. I had never shot the bullet and I had never shot the powder before. And pretty happy with this result. Like, most of the bullets we've tested in this barrel have given pretty good results. We've had a few stinkers here and there, but this group's around an inch out of a cold bore. Really happy with that. Now over here I had some sighters left. This was a extremely rapid fire, empty the brass sort of group. Still not bad, but a lot of barrel heat and mirage went into this one, so we'll pay attention to this one. But I guess basically what I'm getting at here is the gun's zeroed. The gun can shoot a decent group, and I'd be very happy to see groups like that today with the copper bullets. As I mentioned, the bore is clean and decoppered. What's been working for me in general lately is like a foaming bore cleaner. I've got a couple brands here. I think all of the ones I've tried have worked pretty well. You got to be careful with these. Like in gas guns like the AR-10, you can end up with a clogged up gas system. But what I normally do is every once in a while I'll shoot some carburetor cleaner down the gas tube to make sure this stuff hasn't gunked up my adjustable gas block or plugged my gas tube or anything. Usually after the foaming bore cleaner, I'll hit it with some Butch's Bore Shine just to see if it's picking up anything else out of there. And then if everything looks good with the butches, it's, you know, a little bit of oil and we're ready to shoot. The foaming stuff, I'll usually let that sit in there overnight sometimes. So for today, where I really needed to make sure the copper was out of there, I've got some Vortex copper remover. So I ended up hitting the barrel with a couple soaks of this just to be sure. Wasn't really getting much. The gun was already cleaned and I only shot those, what, like 30 sighters. But I went back through the whole deal here. And the other thing I pulled out and tried was a little bit of this Barnes CR10. And you would not believe what is written right here on the back of this Barnes solvent. Note, when shooting pure copper bullets, it is especially important to start with a very clean bore. A small amount of harder gilding metal fouling will strip material from the softer pure copper and accelerate fouling. How about that? It's been right there on this old bottle the whole time, and I'd never read it, at least that I can remember. And I know in Backfire's video, he called up Ron Spomer to talk with him about that. And I remember Ron specifically using the term gilding copper or gilding metal rather than, you know, maybe jacket copper or something like that. So maybe he picked it up from Barnes. I don't know. I don't have the Barnes manual. Maybe they've got a whole section in their manual that talks about making sure you get all the copper out of your bore before you shoot copper solids. Now this should be pretty easy to test. We're not going to really, we're just, you know, shooting for good groups out of a clean gun today. We're not going to do any clean versus dirty comparisons. But I pulled out all of the copper solids that I've got in my stockpile. And it's quite a few. I've got over 500 bullets here. A fair number of them aren't made anymore. And this might be a good opportunity to get rid of some obsolete bullets. Like the 70 grain Hornady GMX, I've got like 70 of those. These are all 22 caliber. Got some Barnes TSXs, some Nosler ballistic tip varmint lead frees, some cutting edge 65 grain match tactical hunting bullets, and then a couple different offerings from Lehigh Defense, as well as this random bag. Like, this company doesn't make bullets anymore, I don't think. Or I think they make ammunition, but they don't sell components anymore. Called Liberty Ammunition. These are nickel plated, yeah, solid copper nickel plated. I don't even know why I bought these, but those are some 55 grainers. Here's another question I've got. So Lehigh Defense used to sell copper and also what they just called lead free, which are very shiny, you know, brass colored yellow bullets. Let's see if I can get them both up here without spilling stuff everywhere. So, you know, obviously an extremely different alloy. I think, you know, the coppers are pure copper. You'll notice here, look at the minimum velocity they have on here, 1,400 feet per second. I think that's the problem when you go away from kind of the pure copper towards some of the alloys. The yellow ones have a minimum of 2,000. So I'm curious, with these that are, you know, obviously harder, would they have the same problems? Is this only a thing with pure copper bullets? We've got plenty of bullets to test stuff. I was watching an episode of the Hornady podcast that they had put out a while back on monolithic bullets, and they were saying that their bullets are a copper zinc alloy. And during that podcast where they were, you know, talking about the advantages and disadvantages of copper bullets and all of that crap, they didn't really mention cleaning for accuracy or any of that. So it seems like we need to do some testing. You know, we need to start us up a good old-fashioned video series. Shoot through a bunch of this crap, like I mentioned. Well, like, you know, the Hornady GMX, they've replaced these with a new lineup called the CX or the CX. Yeah, I think that's it. So before we go ordering any new crap, it's time to use up some of this old stuff and maybe some of these lighter things like the ballistic tip varmint 50 grainer and maybe some of these 55 grainers we can shoot in the bolt gun, the slower twist bolt gun, and the heavier ones maybe we shoot them in the 1-in-7 twist AR. Seems like a good way to use up a bunch of bullets that I'm not really interested in anymore. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, way back when I was looking for a heavy hunting bullet in 22 caliber for deer, for whitetail deer, and then the 75 grain Spear Gold Dot came out and I was done. Like, I love that bullet, still love that bullet, and really lost interest in a lot of this crap. Especially, like I mentioned, you know, the accuracy has pretty much always been poor when we try copper bullets. All right, let me move all this crap out of our way, and we'll talk about our Creedmoor load data. So much like my previous video with the Grendel, My primary source of data today is the Barnes website. They've got load data with a bunch of powders, and what I've pulled out is Hodgdon H4350, Hodgdon H414, which I'm pretty sure has been discontinued here in the last couple of years, but Winchester 760 is still available if I'm not mistaken. They are the same powder, same stuff. The load data actually has Winchester 760 on it, but I don't have any 760, I've got H414. It's the same crap. We're going to use some Alliant Reloder 16 and also some IMR 4350. Nothing too exotic here. Exactly the sort of powders you would expect in the Creedmoor. Now for brass, I've got a bunch of brass that I had prepped last fall. This is Starline small primer brass. It's already been cleaned up and sized, fully prepped, ready to go. The primers are CCI 450s. Now one thing I did with these today was I grabbed a big long pointy VLD style chamfer tool, and I put an extremely aggressive chamfer on these cases. Back when we were loading for the Grendel, the Cavity Back Bullet we were shooting, I was getting some shaved copper during the bullet seating process. So I'm hoping this really aggressive chamfer will fix that problem. Now in that video I did talk about maybe using a universal case expander die to kind of bell the mouth of the case a little bit to make sure we were going to get good smooth bullet seating. We may have to resort to that if we end up with a bunch of problems here, but I'm hoping just the chamfer is going to do everything we need to do. Now one reason I don't want to expand the mouth of the case is that I don't have a Leaf Factory crimp die for 6.5 Creedmoor. If you're not familiar with the Leaf Factory crimp die, this is one for 223, and you might see down in there, if I can get the angle just right, it's a collet, and it just, squeezes around the mouth of the case, and you can adjust it for, how much you want it to crimp. The only option I've really got, if we do end up needing to expand the case mouth on these, is to use our bullet seating die to kind of do the same thing. That would be a little bit of a pain in the butt, or certainly more of a pain in the butt than a Leaf Factory crimp die would be. So hopefully we don't have to worry about it. Once we move on to 223 and we're shooting through all of those bullets I've got, I'm sure at some point one of them is going to give us problems and we'll need to use that method. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Hopefully that doesn't happen today. Okay, what's left? We need to talk about the actual load data. I hate introductions like this where I feel like I've got a bunch of crap I need to talk about and I always end up forgetting stuff. I think I've hit everything I need. So the load data is going to be straight off the Barnes website, and just like I did in that 6.5 Grendel video, today we're going to shoot the same charge weight with all 4 powders. 42.0 grains seems like it should be safe in all 4 of these powders. It's up near max on a couple of them, but I think we're going to be okay. Now the Hodgdon website did have load data for our Hodgdon and IMR powders with the 120 grain TTSX, but it's a reduced load. Like, it's a low pressure reduced load. Of all the bullets to use for reduced loads, I don't know why they would choose a copper solid, because the velocities are barely above, your minimum expansion velocity that you need for this stuff. I don't know if Barnes has they don't have a minimum velocity on the box here that I can see, but I assume it's going to be, 1,800 or 2,000 feet per second, and those loads were like 2,300 feet per second loads. So yeah, a little disappointed by the Hodgdon data there. But they did have, they did have data for 127 grains Barnes LRX. It's a heavier bullet, so obviously the charge, the max charges are going to be a little bit lower usually. But it was nice to have as another source of data. Like our Winchester 760 load that we're using, 42.0 grains, is below the max that they have for the 127 grain, bullet. Same thing with H4350. Same thing with IMR 4350. So that was pretty good as a secondary source, just to make sure that we're probably not getting ourselves into trouble. What else? Overall length. The Barnes data is tested at an overall length of 2.720. We're going to stick with that. I've got some pictures here of both of these bullets seated to 2.720 to give you an idea of where those cantilures and stuff are lining up. I tested in my rifle, and the maximum overall length in my barrel With the Barnes is 2.835, and with the Cavity Back was somewhere around 2.890. So about 115 thousandths of jump with the Barnes and about 170 with the Cavity Back. Now that's something that quite a few people mentioned in the comments of the Grindle video, and also that Hornady podcast I was talking about. They mentioned that as well, that it seems like a lot of times copper bullets like to jump. So we're going to have a nice healthy jump with both bullets today, nowhere close to the rifling. Okay, the round count. I've got 45 of the Barnes bullets. And, you know, since we've got this pristine, clean bore, I'm going to load up 15 with H4350. So that should give us plenty to foul the bore and get it kind of settled in with one powder. You know, that way we're not kind of making a change in the middle of the gun getting settled in. So we'll have 15 rounds of that. We'll shoot that first, foul it in and see what that initial accuracy looks like. And then we'll shoot 10 round groups with the other 3 powders. And with the Cavity Back bullets, I've got 30 of those. So we'll shoot 3 10-shot groups, and I'm removing IMR 4350 from that test. So we'll just do H4350, H414, and Reloader 16 with the Cavity Back bullet. Does that cover it? I think that covers it. Man, this intro feels like a mess. Too much crap to talk about here. This is only my 3rd video back after a break of over a year, so I'm still trying to get my sea legs here. So hopefully you'll forgive a little bit of nonsense. I think I got the info I need you to know about out of my mouth eventually. At least hopefully. All right, what do we do next? We're ready to start weighing powder. Our brass is fully prepped. Let's start weighing powder. It's kind of late, and I'm feeling like doing things the easy way. So I think I'm going to weigh all of these with the Chargemaster Light. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. A bunch of you know what happened just now. Let me move it out of the way for the rest of you to see. I forgot to close the stupid spout and just dumped a couple 100 grains of powder on the bench. Freaking wonderful. Where am I going to put this? If I can get it into this bowl. Some of you might recognize this as the separator from the Sierra manual big ass 3-ring binder. Have they started selling a regular bound book yet? I hate a 3-ring binder. Not a big deal. Not going to let that get us angry. It's been over a year since I made that mistake. I was due for a reminder. All right, zero the scale. Let's throw some check weights on there just to make sure it's giving us good readings today. There's 20, 40, just go to 50. There's 50. Okay. Scale's looking good. So our charge weight for everything is 42.0. And we're off. Okay, so I changed my mind. H414 is a ball powder, and weighing ball powders in a powder dispenser is a little bit of a pain in the butt. It always ends up going everywhere, it seems. I need to get a bigger scoop. I should probably take the time to fill up my trickler, but I probably won't. All right, 42.0. Yeah, I'm going to get a bigger scoop. All right, so that was a 1.9. Let's try a 2.5. Maybe a 2.8. There's always one that gets you close. All right, 2.5 is 37.5 grains. And the 2.8, 41.9. Almost perfect. That's the one we want. All right, so I want to start with the Barnes bullets. I've picked out the seating stem, the Hornady seating stem that fits the best for this bullet. Get that guy installed. I already had the die body installed in the press from whenever I loaded my ciders. So I've backed out the adjuster and let's get this dialed in. Our target is 2.720. Now in the Grendel video, we had a little bit of overall length variation with the Barnes bullets. The cartridge-based ogive numbers were consistent, but I guess the tips vary a little bit, so we'll be on the lookout for that again this time. 2.821 right now, so 101 thousandths. There is exactly 101 thousandths. 2.719, that's close enough. 1,000th too short. I'll load these first 5, or I'll seat these first 5, and we'll see how consistent they seem to be. You know, it was interesting in the Grendel video shooting, well, I did the same thing with the powders. I shot the exact same charge weight with all of the powders we were shooting. And it was interesting to see the velocity differences. I suspect Reloder 16 will probably give us the highest velocity at this charge weight, but maybe not. Yeah, that first one I used to set the die must have been a long bullet, because our next one here is 2.713. A little bit short, that's okay. 2.715, 2.714, 2.713. Not a big deal. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people say you'd like to jump these as much as possible. 2.717. So an extra 8 or 10 thousandths of jump is no big deal. 2.717. Okay, so I've gotten to the Reloder 16, and this is definitely the bulkiest powder. It filled up the most amount of case. So let's see if these are very crunchy. A little bit of crunch. Seat a couple of these and make sure that the overall length didn't grow on us. 2.719, 2.720, 2.717. So still right there in the range we expected. Same thing with 4350. Hearing just a little bit of crunch, just barely. Just a nice full case. All right, the last Barnes bullet. These went really well, seated nice and smooth. Not getting any copper shavings here around the press, which didn't expect. Didn't see that in the Grendel video with the Barnes. But the Cavity Back Bullets were another story. All right, need to swap out the seating stem. Okay, seating stem's in. Need to back out the adjuster. And let's get these dialed in. Same target, 2.720. Boy, that started nice and smooth. Give you an up close look. I don't see any copper digging out. 2.880. So 160 thousandths too long. Okay, that's 160 thousandth adjustment. That one's 2.721. Do the same with these and seat a couple. Now the Cavity Back Bullets in the Grendel had very consistent overall lengths, so I expect to see less variation here. Yeah, those are seating really smooth. Not seeing even the tiniest bit of copper there. So that's good. I'm glad that chamfer was all it took. 2.723, 721, 721, 723, and 721. Tell you what, we'll go ahead and come down 3. Yep, there's 3 thousandths. And we'll run these first 5 back through. And that should be good. Yep, 2.718. Yeah, so getting 2.718, 2.719 now. There's one that's a little bit longer, 2.721 or 20. Perfect. All right, now I need to make sure to keep my rows correct. I need to skip a row in the ammo box. Reloader 16 seems a little bit less crunchy maybe here. It does have that cavity in the back of the bullet. Double checking overall length just for the heck of it. 2.720. Guess I didn't give you a look at one of these. Pretty nice looking bullet. Okay, last one. Perfect. No copper shavings whatsoever. Everything went perfectly. So there's our 75 rounds ready to go. Let's get out to the range. Okay, so we've got a target at 100 yards. I've got a target camera down there, but I don't have a lot of confidence in it, so we might get some target footage and maybe not. But it's not a big deal because we've got the shot marker electronic target system set up that'll track everything that's going on. So my AR-10 has got a 20-inch ballistic advantage barrel. We're going to start out with 120 grain Barnes, and we're going to start with H4350. This is the load that I've got 15 of them loaded up. The gun's completely clean. It hasn't been fouled at all. So we'll see how many shots it takes to hopefully settle down and start grouping. Okay, that first shot went pretty close. We tracked down the brass. The first piece of brass looks pretty good. A little bit dinged up, but not quite as bad as it used to be. When I first got this barrel and built this upper, this gun was absolutely eating brass. And I just couldn't get the gas system tuned to where things would smooth out. But I think I've got it pretty close now. I've got the superlative arms adjustable gas block that you can use to either restrict the gas flow or bleed some gas. And I'm using it in the bleeder mode, and that seems to be giving the best results. All right, let's shoot a couple more, see if we can get a group going. Okay, that's not a terrible start. Those first 5 shots have gone into 1.38 inches. So it's shooting to the same zero that I saw with the Hornady bullets I used to check my zero. So that's good. In the Grindle video, that gun was shooting the Barnes bullets like 3 inches to the right for the most part, which was kind of annoying. Okay, let's keep shooting. There's 5 more in the magazine. Weather's perfect. Temperature's in the 40s. It's a little bit breezier than I would like, but it's not a big deal. It's overcast, so there's no glare. Good day to shoot. So these first 10 shots are very promising. It's a 1.44 inch group. I think what I want to do is the 5 more shots we've got with this powder, we'll save those for later. Like in case the testing goes really terrible from here on out, we can come back and shoot these to kind of use it as a baseline. But I would call that an encouraging start. So let's move on to H414 with the same Barnes bullet. Did I mention the velocity on the last load? Our H4350 was 2,766 feet per second. I should have made notes about what we should expect. Maybe when I take a break and go inside here in a second, I'll double check and make sure we're not too far off from where we should be, but that doesn't seem like a scary number. Okay, H414. Velocity was just a little bit lower with that one, 2707. The brass looks good. Let's keep shooting. Okay, we're at 1.26 inches so far. Let's keep going. 5 more. Okay, so that was a 1.29 inch group, which is actually better than the last group, which seems weird. It looks bigger, doesn't it? Is it just me? So 1.29 inch group, velocity was 2737, standard deviation 19.5. You know, pretty mediocre results, but better than we saw with the Grendel. Have to hold out hope that either Reloder 16 or IMR 4350, maybe one of them will be the magic powder that tightens up these groups. But before we move on, I'm going to take a little break, let the gun cool down. I want to run inside and make sure these, 2750 velocities are about right, or about what we should expect, and then I'll be back. Okay, so the gun's had time to cool off, and our velocities are about 100 feet per second slower than what were listed on the Barnes load data, which makes a lot of sense. Our barrel is a 20-inch barrel. Their load data is a 24-inch barrel. So that seems just about right. Okay, gun's nice and cooled down. We're moving on to Reloder 16. Let's see how they do. Tell you what, I got pretty excited after those first 3 shots. So this is a 1.67 inch group, but it's the most impressive so far to me. Let's hide number 5 and see what it was without that. Yeah, 1.12 inches without it. The velocity was 2797 with a standard deviation of 14.6. Hey, at least those first 3 shots gave us some hope. So time to move on. So the last powder with the Barnes bullet is IMR 4350. Okay, so that group was 1.36 inches. The velocity was 2724, standard deviation 9.2. So all of our groups were between 1.29 inches and 1.67 inches. It's kind of in that solidly mediocre category. Perfectly good enough to deer hunt with, but just not at all impressive. A little bit aggravating. So here's what I've been trying to decide is, do I go and clean the gun real quick before we switch over to the Cavity Back Bullets? I think I'm going to. It's not going to be some crazy deep scrub, but it's going to be a few patches with Butch's Boreshine, and then a quick soak with a copper solvent, and then a little bit more Butch's Boreshine, and then some dry patches, and come back and shoot. Like a 15-minute cleaning job, maybe. I just want to give these Cavity Back bullets the best opportunity to succeed. And if you remember, you know, we've still got 5 shots left with the Barnes and the H4350. We'll shoot those at the very end. Once the barrel has been fouled with Cavity Back bullets copper, we'll see if the Barnes still group about like they did out of a clean bore. So I'll be back in a little bit. So the barrel cleaning went really well. Patches were coming out nice and clean at the end. So I think I basically got it back to a nearly pristine condition. So let's see how the Cavity Back bullets are going to do. The 118 grain Cavity Back bullets. The first powder is H4350. Almost forgot to start recording shot marker. That wouldn't have been good. All right, let's see what happens. The first velocity a little bit lower, 26.99. Better check the brass just to be safe. The brass looks good. How about that? First 5 shots so far are into 0.49 inches. Let's keep it going. All right, now we're cooking. Now we got something going, 0.89 inches. So the velocity is a little bit slower than we had seen with the Barnes bullet. 26.94 was the average. Standard deviation 18.4, extreme spread of 66. But the most important part is we got a 0.89 inch group, reasonably evenly distributed. Let's hide this 9th shot. Yeah, so 9 out of the 10 went into 0.57 inches. So that is terrific. That is really terrific. So let's move on to the next one. The powder is H414. Okay, 10 shots. That shot went a mile high, way up there. You know what? I think I just had a hang fire. I think these are low on pressure. Like I can tell just by the way the gun's barely cycling. That last one felt weird. Got 4 of them left. I'm not going to shoot them. The group is terrible, and I don't think we're getting consistent ignition. Or probably should say it the other way. We're not getting consistent ignition, which is causing a gigantic, disgusting group down there. And that makes me really nervous when the rounds aren't going off the way they should. So better safe than sorry. I'll have to see if that hang fire got picked up by the microphone. A lot of times you can hear them pretty distinctly. So the group was huge, 3.14 inches. The velocities were all over the place. The average was 27.38. What, standard deviation 27.4 and extreme spread of 82 just on those 6 shots. So not good. All right, so let's go on to Reloader 16. Back to an extruded powder that should be a little bit easier to ignite and less likely to give us hang fires, especially because, you know, this Reloader 16 load, this is the ones that, it's definitely a nice full case of powder. Very good conditions for ignition. So don't expect to have any more of those problems. Okay, 10 shots in the magazine. Yeah, that's unfortunate. It seemed like that was really trying to group, but that 8th shot and the 10th shot really opened things up to a 1.52 inch group. The velocity was 2733, standard deviation 9.2, extreme spread 35. Seems like our loads with the cavity back were about 50 feet per second behind the ones with the Barnes. We can look at that a little bit closer later at the bench. Man, that sucks. Let's see what it was without the 8th shot and the 10th shot. Yeah, 8 out of 10 of them went into 0.79 inches. So it was definitely trying to group. It just wasn't quite as good as that first group we had with H4350. But you know, I'm really happy. Like this 118 cavity back, we've got to put it in the good pile. You know, something we probably ought to come back to with this gun. It's proven that it's got a little bit of capability when we choose the right powder. So definitely the best performance we've seen so far. Okay, so let's go back to our very first group with the Barnes, right? We still have 5 of these left. It's the 120 grain Barnes with H4350, and we'll shoot them into the original 10 shot group we fired and see if, you know, we've had any point of impact change, or if now that the barrel is fouled with the cavity back copper, they won't shoot as well. I don't know. Let's see. 5 shots. Looks like they went right in there with the others. That's good news. I guess our group did grow just a little bit from 1.44 inches to 1.45 inches. So I'm not going to worry about that, but let's see, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11. Yep, right over top of the old ones. No change. All right, let's get packed up. Let's get back to the bench. So no problems with pressure signs on brass today, but you know, a little bit of wear and tear from the AR-10 action. Like I mentioned out on the range, it's a lot better than it used to be since I've got the gas system tuned a little bit better, but it's just something I'm going to have to deal with. Here's another random piece. Couple marks, nothing to freak out over. All good stuff in the brass department today. So we were really saved by one group today. The Barnes were all mediocre, but that H4350 group with the 118 grain cavity back, it's really, really impressive. And just need to make sure I'm keeping my eye on the prize here, right? The main goal of all of this testing is to find a bullet I can deer hunt with this year. And the cavity back with H4350 has got to be a contender. That's really impressive results. And the result over here with Reloader 16 was better than the Barnes groups, right? So it's kind of too bad that we wasted some of our bullets on the on H414, but it is what it is. I wanted to have a ball powder in the mix. Some people like them, so I'm not too sad about it. Now, this is not the first time we've run into hang fires in 6.5 Creedmoor. I did a whole video about it. I ran into some problems, did a whole video on the subject. And I'm always complaining about ball powders, but somebody reminded me just the other day, I had the same problem with Vitavori. I believe it was Vitavori N555. It was a load with very low load density, right? Lots of excess case capacity, and we had some hang fires. And that was kind of that's what we learned through that video I did years back, was it's really all about load density. And particularly with this small primer brass. I think I'm done with small primer brass in the 6.5 Creedmoor. I'm just going to go with large primer stuff from now on. As far as I can remember, I've never had a problem when shooting large primers. When I was getting into 6.5 Creedmoor for the first time, I bought the small primer brass just because I shoot more small primer cartridges, so I've usually got more small primers laying around and thought it would just be more convenient. But it's caused enough problems that I think I'm done with small primer brass. See, is there anything we need to talk about? I don't think so. I'm looking forward to my next tests in 223 with, all those bullets I've got laying around, where we could do some dirty barrel versus clean barrel back-to-back tests and see if we can duplicate those results that Backfire had. That'll probably be my next video, is one of those. I'm not going to try and shoot all 500 of those bullets in one video, so it'll be a couple videos. We'll take our time, see what we can learn. Like I mentioned, we can test in the AR, and we can pull out the bolt gun as well. See if we can just kind of come to a better understanding of the situation here. Because having some answers after 15 years of mediocre results with copper would be pretty cool. I would like to be able to shoot copper confidently and get good results. So let's work on getting to that point. I had a little bit of audio issues during this video. I think, I don't know. If the audio is a little bit crusty, then it is what it is. I'll try to fix my mistake next time. I'll probably be having a live stream on YouTube the day after this comes out, just to chat with you guys and get some feedback and some ideas. And I think that pretty much covers it. So that's it for today. See you guys next time.